Thank you. Morning again. Do you know, it's really hard because I have my script, and I have to have a script nowadays. So I've got something called Meniere's disease, which kind of affects my short-term memory. So everything is scripted, and I do read it off. So apologies if, but sometimes I go off script. And as I sit there, and when we have worship and when we have other things, I kind of have all these other ideas come into my head. So if I go completely off script, I do apologise, but we'll just see how it goes. This year, as I said, marks our 20th anniversary, and since 2003, we've tried to just share the love of Jesus with people on the streets, or those people in need, or for those people whose world is just really uncomfortable, or whether they're lonely and whether they're cold, or whether their existence, or whether they feel that their existence is without hope or meaning. Um, and we've done that right from the start, since Mike Curtis first set it up, just by sitting with them and praying with them and just offering them basic necessities to survive. And that's fine up to a certain point, but sometimes it's got to be about more than that. There are only so many cups of tea and so many cups of coffee that you can give to somebody before you start feeling, what more can we do? And that's been sitting really heavily on our hearts for the last few years. Um, but so much has been going on for this 20th anniversary that we want to get out into the churches and just tell you and give you an update on the things that are happening, because we have got some big changes coming up. So we have been supporting people since 2003, and the way that we support people nowadays is in three different areas. You would have seen it on the video, but we focus on aid, transformation, and growth. Because, as I say, it's got to be more than just giving a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and it's got to be more than just offering prayer. So transformation and growth have become really, really important to us, certainly in the last 18 months. But to offer aid, we still do what we've always done. We, or we just do it on a bigger scale. We have street teams who go out, and those street teams go out 5 days a week. They'll go out on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Thursday, Friday, and a Saturday, and they will just walk around the city centre and see who's around. And they'll have their trolleys with them. You might have seen some of the photos. They'll have the trolleys, and on those trolleys, they've got hot drinks, they've got emergency food packs for rough sleepers, and they've got some basic emergency food packs for people. Um, and they're normally a team of three or four. And within that team, there's a team leader who are always amazing, and they will go out and they will react to different situations as they arise, because things don't always go to plan. The people that we work with, some of them might be dependent on alcohol, some, or most of them, let's be fair, are dependent on alcohol or have a dependency on drugs, and you never know what situations you come across, even in the street. So the team leads are trained to deal with all sorts of different situations. But there's also somebody on the team who's always there to offer prayer. And in every team that goes out, whether we come across 15 people or whether we come across, and it does happen, 45 to 50 people as they're going out about, every single person they come across is offered prayer. And you'd be amazed at how many people take it up. Really, honestly. How many people who would say, yes, we don't believe in what you believe in, but pray for me anyway. And there was a story not so long ago, actually, where one of the guys was in town, and he was in a really bad place. He was suicidal. That's the reality of it, and wasn't just talking about being suicidal. He was ready to go and end it all. And life was really tough, and I won't go into all the details. But one of our team did sit and pray with him. And then part of our role as well is signposting people to other agencies. We're not the experts in all of this. We don't know the answer to everything. So we will signpost people to different situations. Anyway, we got this guy some support. And it was about 2 weeks later, he went away for a couple of weeks, and he was in town, and the same street team were out, and they saw this chap. Now, bear in mind, they'd prayed for him 2 weeks previously, and he bounded up to them, and he was so full of life. And he just said, look, it was just amazing, because when he prayed for me, he said he felt something, and he then got the support he needed. Within those 2 weeks alone, he'd been put into accommodation. He had been signposted with some different medication that he needed, because actually it was the medication that he was on that was causing a lot of issues with him, a lot of paranoia and a lot of other issues. They'd sorted his medication out, got him into some accommodation, and he just came up and he just gave the street team a hug, and he said, hey, do you know what? This Jesus bloke that you talk about, there might be something in him. And it was like, oh, absolutely. And that was it. And you get those moments. So it is about giving out cups of tea, but sometimes it's about more than that. So our street teams are out there, and we are just truly blessed with the volunteers that we have who go out and do that work. We have our clothes bank. This is called Restore. This is down Southgate Street. And you've been very generous in the past, and you've given donations of clothes and other items. All of those items then go to the clothes bank. And on a Tuesday afternoon and a Thursday afternoon, clients can come in and they can get fresh clothes or toiletries, emergency provisions, other bits and pieces that they need. Then we have, that's not run by volunteers, it's run through staff. We have our mobile outreach teams who'll go a bit further afield. So sometimes we'll get reports from the public and they'll go, we've just been up Robinswood Hill and we found that there was somebody in a tent. We were just chatting to them. So we will send teams out just to go and do welfare checks. Because actually the guys who are a bit further afield, when I say guys, it's men and women, they are there for a reason. They don't want to be around lots of other people. They don't necessarily want to have lots of help. But we can just go out and do a welfare check, maybe once a week or once a fortnight, just to go and see, you all right? Do you need anything? And they might say, actually, I don't need anything. Oh, actually, I did have a headache the other day. Can you get some paracetamol? We'll go, yeah, absolutely. So we're just going to get things like that. One of the guys, he's called Dave, and he's been rough sleeping for 47 years. He is 76 years of age. We catch up with him and say, do you need anything? And he said, oh, do you know what I really need? He's got a really, kind of really rusty. Do you know what you really need? Oh, you need some castor oil. We said, what? Out of all the things you need, like, I really need some castor oil. We said, okay, Dave, we'll go get you some castor oil. We can never assume anything what people want. We can assume that people want tea, coffee, soup, and whatever. But all he wanted on that day was some castor oil. So we went and got him some. So our mobile outreach teams go a bit further. One of the big changes that we've got coming up this year is from July, we're going to be opening up a new centre called Retreat. And Retreat is going to be a daytime provision for people who are street homeless. So the people you might see out and about town sleep in doorways, they might have the duvets, they might have they might have their rucksacks with them or the bits and pieces with them. It's an awfully long day. And I've spent quite a lot of time over the winter talking to the guys who are on the streets and talking to the guys in the shelter about what they want or what they need during the daytime. And the big thing that's come back in that feedback is we just need somewhere to go in the daytime. Now, we also run our education and training centre now, but these guys aren't ready for that. They don't want to come to that. They just need somewhere that's safe, that they can come and crash, or they can come and have some food, or they can come and have a shower, or they can get signposted to other agencies without necessarily leaving their pitch. Or sometimes they have to bring all their kit with them. And that's quite a lot of stuff to have their duvet or the sleeping bags and the rucksacks and things. So from July, we're really excited to be opening what's going to be called Retreat. It's going to be at our main building in Eastgate Street. It's we've completely put this in God's hands, and he's kind of just hit us with it rather unexpectedly. We have been talking about it for about 6 months or so, but we're going to open that and see how it goes. And we believe that it's going to be a really exciting and life-changing place for these guys, because if we can get them to come in the daytime, then we can get them to come to the education centre, then we can get them to come into the wellbeing garden, then we can get them to seek other help and to do other things. And it's just part of the journey to get them out of the situations they're in now in somewhere else. So that's how we offer aid. The big push, though, for us is more than just aid. So we do genuinely offer to try and transform lives. So through Renew, that's our Eastgate Street building, that's our main offices. It's got lots of drop-in centres, drop-in units, but it's also our education and training centre. And then we have Refuel. This is our monthly worship session, and you'd all be welcome to this. It's at St Mary's Congregational Church, and that's for volunteers, clients, staff, anybody who's just in town who wants to come and spend an hour or 45 minutes to an hour in worship and prayer, just to come and do that. So that's open to everybody. Also through Transforming Lives, though, we give people job opportunities. I don't know if you watch Songs of Praise, but a few months, March 12th it was actually, we were featured on Songs of Praise, and Sarah, who was our coffee shop manager at the time, she's since had a promotion, was featured on there. Now, Sarah, she won't mind me telling you this. Sarah had 22 years of addiction to crack and heroin. She was in a horrific place. She sold herself. She did all sorts of things that she would never have expected she would have done. And 2.5 years ago, she started coming to the mission through another project. She started coming and just did some volunteering in our kitchen. Um, and we could just see potential with it. And we were just being bombarded that give her a chance, give her a chance, give her a chance. And we did. And I gave her a job just to do some work in the kitchen. Um, she then became the coffee shop manager. She's now our street teams and recovery manager, and she's gone to do that. But when we got talking to the producers at Songs of Praise about her, they wanted to come and do a feature on us as GCM in their 20th year. And I said, I don't want you to do a feature on us. I want you to do a human story and feature one of the stories where somebody has genuinely been transformed. And so we got talking, and they did take Sarah's story. And she had the epiphanies, whatever you want to call them. She was absolutely blasted by Jesus a few years ago, and her whole life has genuinely been transformed. And we then think that we don't, that's nothing to do with us. We're just part of the journey that she's on. But if you met her, she's amazing. And all of the staff in the coffee shop have, at some point, have either been homeless or rough sleeping or had addictions. Darren, who is now our assistant manager in there, if you'd met him 5 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to talk to him. He'd been rough sleeping. He was he's a recovering alcoholic now. But he wouldn't have a conversation with you. He wouldn't look you in the eye. If you go into Revive Coffee House now, Darren, as I say, is in there. He's a different man. Now, he went on his journey of faith way before he met us. He went through Mariners Church in Gloucester, and he was transformed through that church. And so we tell these stories, and we tell these stories to the guys about that's how transformation works. So we've got lots of stories like that where people have been transformed. We've got a guy who now works in the coffee shop. He's called Connor. This winter, he worked in the winter shelter. Last winter, he was a guest in the winter shelter. So we try and take these people along with us and say, look, we will take a chance with you. We believe in you as long as you believe in what we're talking about as well. And they do. And amazing things happen. So through that transformation, we also help people to grow. So talking about that, we'll give people a chance, but then we'll train them and we'll work with them and we'll move them on, not just in with their life, but with their life with Jesus as well. So there's lots of things that happen. In the Education and Training Centre, we've got lots and lots of courses that go on. We have multi-agency drop-in sessions 5 days a week. We have our Alpha course. We have our follow-up discipleship course that's for clients. We run those twice a year. We've just written a new course called Embrace, which is kind of like Alpha, but it's aimed particularly at people in recovery. And we've kind of targeted the groups that we want to do, because what we found with Alpha was it was too hard for a lot of our guys. So we took the Youth Alpha course and the Alpha course and kind of combined them for a course that worked. But that then didn't work for the guys in recovery. So we've just written a new course. That launches on June the 13th, I think. And that's going to be a Thursday night course where people can come and do that. So lots of exciting things going on. We've started Bible study courses in some of the accommodation units in the city as well. And we're doing bits and pieces with those as well. In our main building, we've got an opticians clinic run through VCHP. And then in July also, we're launching a podiatry service. We had a guy who came to, if I'm going on too long, somebody give me a signal or give me a kick or do whatever, because I get carried away. I've gone off script already. I've only done 1 page and I've got 6 pages, I think. So, sorry. Yeah, we had a guy called Jason who came in before Christmas, and he was passing through. He'd been on the road for 5 years, and he'd just come up from Cornwall, and he ended up in Gloucester. And he literally just knocked on the door one day, and we'll let everybody in, we'll have a chat, we'll have a cup of tea, we'll say, what's your story? And they will tell us as much as they want to tell. But Jason was quite open, and he was sleeping rough, he was hopping on and off trains, but he was also walking around. And I said, so what have you been doing then for these last 6 years? He said, I've just been walking. I said, why? He said, I don't know. I just felt I wanted to walk, and I wanted to just travel around and see different things. I said, but how did you end up here? He said, well, there's a funny story, because 2.5 years ago, I was in Glasgow, and I knocked on a door there, and that was called Gloucester City Mission. I didn't know who they were, and I knocked on the door, and they got talking. And we get on. We're all completely independent at City Missions, but I meet up with the other managers from around the country, and he said, well, yeah, I was talking to them, and they said, well, if you're ever passing through Gloucester, go and knock on their door, because they'll be super friendly with you. So he did. 2.5 years later, he found us, he knocked on the door and said, look, when I was at Glasgow, they said to pop in. So I rang Charlie, who's the manager at Glasgow, and I said, look, do any of your guys remember Jason? And he didn't, but somebody else did. And I said, all you need to know is Jason's fine. He's still traveling around 2.5 years later, but he just wanted you to know that he's safe and he's secure, and he just wanted to say thank you these years later. And you get these stories. But the story about podiatry from that is when he looked at his feet, he just had some like plimsolls, daps, whatever you want to call them. I'd call them daps, but he had this sort of plimsoll shoes on, and they were completely worn through, and his feet were just an absolute mess. And again, through talking, say, how can we help? He said, well, my feet are a mess. I said, do you want shoes? He said, no, I don't want shoes because my feet hurt too much. And those daps that he had, the worn-through daps, are the only things that were comfortable. So we said, right, we will find somebody who will come and do podiatry and help these guys with their feet, because their feet are just disgusting. I don't like feet anyway, but they're really disgusting. So opticians and podiatry are really important for helping the guys through with different situations. We also work probation, DWP, city council housing. Currently, we've got courses on in crafts, gardening, woodwork, IT, basic skills literacy, football, music therapy, mindfulness, counselling, Narcotics Anonymous, and art courses. So there's quite a lot of stuff that goes on for people. And the way we see it is, if that's 1 hour less out on the streets, or if that's 1 hour less in your accommodation feeling lonely, or 1 hour on the streets drinking, that's 1 hour less in the day. That's brilliant. Because next month, it might be 2 hours less. And you never know where that's going to lead. So, as you may be, I'm going to jump a few paragraphs now just to save you a bit. So, as you might be aware, for the last 7 years or so, we've been running the emergency winter shelter in the city. It's been open from the 1st of December to 31st of March each year. And this is one of the things that we're going to change. This is one of the things that trustees and myself, we've had lots of conversations about. Because 7 years ago, when we first opened it, the vast majority of the guests were people with no recourse to public funding. So generally that meant that they were not British or didn't have British settled status, or they had no local connection to Gloucester or to Gloucestershire, but mainly to Gloucester. But over the last few years, this has really, really reduced. There's been a massive increase in funding from the government to the councils, and there's been an increase in other provision. So because of those things, for example, the council had £3.8 million at the end of COVID. And with that £3.8 million, what they did was employ, they've got 5 staff now, 5 new staff who are working with guys who are homeless, but they also built 100 single unit accommodation places where they could move people into. So with all that in mind, one of the things that's been decided recently is that next year we won't run the winter shelter because we think God is strongly telling us there isn't that need for us to do it. Everything else has changed. And one of the things that we try really hard to do is respond to changes in need. And if the need isn't there, we don't need to spend. It cost us £60,000 to run this last winter shelter. Why do we need to spend £60,000 on the shelter if the need isn't there? And we have seen a huge reduction in the numbers that have come through the shelter over the past few years. And this is why Retreat, which is the new daytime provision, is so important, because it's a place that's going to be open all year round. And with the council and with commission services such as P3 having such an increase in resources, if we can get those guys in during the whole year, we can then signpost and work with them and get them to engage with the council and P3 in order to move them into accommodation. So that's the main decision. And one of the things, because we did announce it last week that the shelter wouldn't be open, but we're not ashamed of that. What we really do is actually we're proud of what we've done for the last 7 years, and now we're super proud and excited about the fact that we can offer an all year round day provision to those people who really, really need it. And at the same time as Retreat opening, all of our other provisions are going to continue to grow. Not just with rough sleepers, but anybody who's homeless, that list I said at the start, and in particular, anybody who's in recovery as well. We're doing an awful lot of work on that. We're so thankful to our volunteers who give us so much time. We've got about 65 regular volunteers every week, but during the course of the year, we have about 450 volunteers who come and work with us. As I said at the start, we've grown significantly, and we do continue to grow, but we're still relatively small. couple of months ago, I talked about other missions. I was with the chief exec at London City Mission. And while I was in London with them, we went to St Mary Woolnoth. And it's a small church in the city of London. Some of you might have been there, some of you might have heard of it, some of you might not. Probably haven't. It's near the Bank of England. And I think this next story is important because it shows you can do small and you can do things internally that have huge impacts on other people around you. But the important thing about St Mary Woolnoth is that this was the place where John Newton became rector in 1779, and he was there for 28 years. Now, if you don't know who John Newton was, he was the person who wrote Amazing Grace. And if you know the lyrics to, or if you know the words to Amazing Grace, then you might guess about the story that he might have been on. But I found out quite a lot. This is through the Christian Heritage Tours. And if you're ever in London, I can really recommend you do one. Really interesting. Um, so he had been a slave trader for many years, and a really horrible, horrific slave trader. I mean, the things that he did to other people, other humans, were absolutely horrific. But eventually there became a point in his life where things turned around, and he found faith. And through his faith, he stopped being a slave trader. There were other things around it as well, but he stopped being a slave trader, and he became a rector, he became a vicar. And part of his job then was to preach about the horrible things that he'd done previously, and to talk about his lifestyle. So when he wrote Amazing Grace, it was one of those life-affirming moments for him to get across the story, and it's about him. Anyway, in 1785, while he was the rector there, he was visited by a chap called William Wilberforce. You may have heard about him. Now, when Wilberforce came in, he literally went into the church, and he just broke down in tears. And John Newton was the man who consoled him. Now, it's not entirely clear at the time whether Wilberforce was a Christian or not. The story at the time is he wasn't a Christian, and it was actually Newton who helped him and took him on the journey to be a Christian. 11 years later was when the government had finally voted through the bill to abolish slavery. And it was at that time again that Newton was there. Sorry, they voted down the bill to abolish slavery. And Newton again was now a member of his congregation. And he went in and he spoke to Newton. Wilberforce was a member of the congregation, and he spoke to Newton. And he said, "Look, I can't keep doing this." And he was written a letter. And in the letter, Newton wrote to Wilberforce and said, Newton wrote, "The example and even the presence of a consistent character may have a powerful, though unobserved, effect upon others. You are not only a representative for Yorkshire, you have far greater honour of being a representative for the Lord in a place where many know him not, and an opportunity of showing them what are genuine fruits of that religion which you are known to profess." And Wilberforce didn't give up. He then went back and he kept fighting to abolish slavery. And all this stuff was going on. And I was just in this church thinking, like, but this is a small church. And John Newton had turned his life around. And all this stuff was going on. And I was thinking, this could be any of our guys. This could be any of us. Somebody you don't know. When Jason came knocking on our door and came in his worn-through shoes, I have no idea who he was or what his story is. And we have no idea the impact that we can have when we just share a bit of love with somebody. And then he goes off and travels to somewhere else. He had no idea 2.5 years ago that he would come to Gloucester from Glasgow. And he would have had no idea now that I would be telling you about someone like Jason, and the story that we can have. And if that means that one of you goes off and does something else, how awesome is that? But it doesn't matter how small we are as a church. It doesn't matter how small we are as a charity. It's those little things. And if Wilberforce hadn't have gone and broken down in front of Newton, and if Newton hadn't have given up his slave trade and turned to his faith, and then sort of drove other people to do what they're doing, life would be so much different now to what it is. So those small things make massive differences. We can all make amends for the bad things that we've done in the same way that Newton made amends for what he had done. I'm going to kind of draw to a close. I just want to say thank you as well to the church because I know you've supported us, not just by letting me come in and waffle on at you, but actually you support us throughout the year. And last year, Tina and I think Shane came as well. I can't remember if Shane or Pete, really sorry. Somebody came as a group, and as a group, as the mission team, they came and saw some of the work we do. It'd be lovely to have you back again once we've got retreat open to come and see what we're doing again, to keep moving forward. Um, but the rest of you, as a church, there are some things that you could do to help us. Firstly, just please continue to pray for our clients, but also pray for our volunteers and pray for our staff. Pray that we can continue to be blessed by God in the work that we can do, and that we continue to get new volunteers and we continue to get fantastic staff as well. So please pray for everybody. If you go onto our website, you can click on and you can get our monthly prayer sheet. And on there, there's daily prayer points for different aspects of our work. So maybe that might be something you want to do. Maybe you want to take part in some of our events. I mentioned two of them at the start. We've got quite a lot coming up. You're all really, really welcome to come and join us on July the 2nd for our 20th anniversary Thanksgiving celebration. It's at Southgate Evangelical Church. It starts at 3 o'clock. You don't have to book, just rock up and we'll see who's there. No idea what is going to happen on that afternoon, but it'll be fun anyway. September the 7th, we've got fire walking. In case you haven't heard it before, just mentioning, we've got fire walking. So if you want to come and just literally step out and do something different, please come along. It'd be great if maybe some of the church came, or if you encourage some of the groups in the church to come. October, we have Big City Sleep Out. October the 14th, we've got professional wrestling. We've got Kingdom Wrestling coming. And Kingdom Wrestling literally go all around Europe and all around the country. And they teach the gospel through wrestling. They're awesome. It's run by a brilliant man called Gareth Thompson, whose wrestling name is Gareth Angel. And it's just fab. So October the 14th, if you found, and it's proper American wrestling, and they've said, oh, do you want to do ladders and chairs and all this stuff? It's like, I don't know. So it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited. If you want to just look at how the gospel can be taught in a different way, and you want to come and do that, that will be in Gloucester. We're doing that in Gloucester City Church on October the 14th. In November, we have our annual quiz night. Maybe Tewkesbury Baptist Church might like to enter a team to our quiz night. We do a quiz night and Ploughman's. That's in Kingfisher Church in Gloucester. And then December the 1st, please all come. We have our carol concert in Gloucester Cathedral. Yeah, it would be lovely to have you all there. It's not a service, it's a concert. It's a real celebration. So the cathedral are great for us. They let us have it for free. And when we did it 2 years ago, we literally packed the cathedral out with supporters. We have some fantastic choirs coming. So please do that. But maybe you might want to organise your own event through church. Do something else. It's awesome that you're doing lunch today. So thank you so much for doing that. Last year, we spent £304,000. Right, this is where we've grown to. We spent £304,000 on the work that we do. We literally fundraise it all. We don't accept statutory funding. We don't accept lottery funding. We're just blessed with donations. And your church is one of the churches that bless us. We're supported by about 46 churches at the moment. So we are blessed. And thank you so much for the donations that you give us. On our website, we've got a list of current clothes or other items that we need. So please have a look on that. If you're having a spring clear out or anything, we're always after donations from that. Financial support is always welcome, but I'm not a bucket shaker or anything. But thank you if you do support us, and thank you if you are staying for lunch. Volunteering, so far this financial year, our year is July to June. We've had over 450 volunteers giving 5,158 hours worth of support. Now, if you work that out in terms of salaries and stuff, that's a lot of support we get. So if you do volunteer with us, thank you. And if you don't volunteer with us, why not? No, you'd be very welcome to come and volunteer us. Some of our volunteers serve food, help run courses, do the street teams. Some of them sort donations, cooking. Some is where companies come in. Some is where schools come in, or universities or colleges, and do volunteer days and do all sorts of projects with us. But if you'd like to volunteer, just have a look at our website. Thank you. I will close there. Thank you so much for inviting me in today. If we could just close in prayer, that would be amazing. Father God, thank you that we experience your amazing grace. love, and your faithfulness through Jesus. Thank you that he seeks justice and proclaims the cause of righteousness. Help us, like him, to have a concern for the poorest of the poor and the needy in our country, and to give generously in whatever ways we can. Please wrap your protection over those who use the services of GCM and those who work and volunteer there, and also continue to offer your love to them all. Whatever plans you have for GCM and for us personally, let us open our hearts and minds and be ready to step out. In Jesus' name, amen.